One of the fastest ways to kill your growth as a producer is chasing perfect tracks. And if that's been you, let me show you why and how to break out of that trap. Here's the truth. Perfectionism feels like progress. You sit there tweaking hi-hats, moving a snare by a millisecond, swapping out plugins, and you tell yourself, I'm just making it better. But what's really happening is avoidance. Avoidance of feedback, avoidance of growth, and most of all, avoidance of risk. Because as long as your track is never finished, it never has to be judged. It never has to face the world. So instead of asking, is this track perfect? Shift your mindset to, am I progressing with this track? Progress doesn't mean flawless. Progress means you've learned something new. And every finished track is a snapshot of where you are at the moment in your journey, or where you were at the moment in your journey. It's not your final legacy. It's just one stepping stone toward mastery. I work with a student who had over 40 plus unfinished tracks in his hard drive. He told me he was just waiting until they were ready. But here's a problem. Ready does not exist. Once we reframed finishing as progress instead of perfection, everything shifted. He finished and released 3 tracks in just 6 weeks. None of them were perfect, but each one was better than the last because finishing taught him lessons that tweaking never did. That's why in my mentorship, we push producers to finish tracks. And for those that get to the advanced levels, we push them to finish at least 12 tracks every 3 months. Not because quantity matters more than quality, because consistency builds the muscle. Every track you finish levels you up. That's how progress actually works. Here's the second mindset shift. Every finished track is data. It shows you what works, what doesn't, and what people actually connect with. If you never finish, you never collect that data. And without it, you're producing in a vacuum. Release is research. Every time you hear your own track fully bounced, played out, or shared with others, you hear it differently. You feel vulnerable, you hear the flaws, but you also hear your growth. That's how you get better. Now, let's be honest. Perfectionism isn't really about standards. It's about fear. Fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear that if people hear the track and don't like it, maybe you'll never make it. Those are real things that we feel, right? But the reality is you need rejection, you need imperfection, and the only way to discover your sound is that every pro you look up to has a trail of imperfect tracks behind them. That's not failure, that's the foundation of mastery. I've worked with countless producers who said the same thing. It's just not ready yet. But the truth is, there is no such thing as ready. Even me, when I record these videos, they're not perfect. Sometimes I stumble, sometimes the lighting's off, but every single one I finish makes me better the next time. Music is no different. I've finished hundreds of tracks over the years, but there's this unique headspace you get into when you listen to your finished track that's released. Like, you hear it from a different point of view you would have never had access to before if you've never finished a track. The act of finishing is what sharpens you. If you're stuck polishing the same track for months, you're not perfecting it, you're overworking it, you're focusing on the wrong thing. And focusing on the wrong thing is a clear sign that your understanding of the fundamentals are weak. That's why mentorship exists. Not to give you another plug-in trick. Run away from those type of education. Mentorship holds the mirror up and says, stop grinding in circles. Start focusing on what actually moves you forward. And this is done by teaching you how to think professionally in the DAW. We call this mindset in the DAW in our program. Momentum beats masterpieces. A producer who finishes 20 good enough tracks grows 10 times faster than the one polishing one track for 2 years. Why? Because the first producer is building habits, systems, and confidence. The second one is building hesitation, fear, and perfection paralysis. And we've all seen this in those producers. And when you look back after a year, only one of those paths actually produced growth. So if you've been stuck for months or even years trying to create the perfect track, here's the truth. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. Done is better than perfect. Finished tracks move you forward. Unfinished tracks keep you stuck exactly where you are. The pros aren't perfect, they're prolific. And if you want to grow, that's the mindset you need to adopt starting today.